has. So.
If they want to record it, and if I do have them share with the class, especially the first year, or we go down the line. They're very short. And then on the next rubric is the chromatic composition. And so this will be for the second year players, because I'm ready for them to learn the chromatic scale and know it. Know what the noting looks like on the staff, what it looks like on the instrument, and know the enharmonics. So what we'll do in class is we'll have somebody play a melody, and then I have them just use each note twice. So we'll write this up, and this is over a long period of time, kind of throwing it at you today. And after they use it, we'll just mark out the note. After they use it twice, we've marked out the note, we'll check it, and that's how they do the composition themselves. And then the good thing there is, how do you know that they know the chromatic scale or not? Give them a composition. How do you know that they know and understand how long a dotted quarter note is? Give them a short 4-measure composition that shows the dotted quarter note, so it isolates that, and you can get into their metacognitive processes of what they're thinking. I did not bring an example. You don't want an example of the chromatic composition. So how much time can we spend composing? Not for that age, not for early 7th grade band. I do 3 to 4 times a semester, and that can include the book. I know how overwhelmed we are. I know we have a lot of things to do and grade and prepare and prep and teach PE and all this stuff. It could be a small composition, it could be a book exercise. Concert band does the same, and then symphonic bands, depending on the group, it's maybe 1 to 3 times a semester. So when are they composing? Mine's pretty much just homework. I'm not sending them off and have them compose and we'll talk about it in the warm-up, just while we're doing our fundamentals and foundational musical elements. When we do solo and ensemble, sometimes the students will ask, can we compose to kind of figure out how this works with our solo and ensemble piece? And they're practicing at home, and I found when students compose, they have a little more ownership, and it gets them a little more excited to practice. So we wanted to practice, and they're still practicing the things we wanted to practice, whether it's tone, rhythm, posture, and fundamentals. And so how long do I give them? I give them about 3 weeks. And then I'll check kind of in the middle just to make sure they've started, because I do not take compositions late. I don't have the time, I'm not going to make the time, so they've got about 3 weeks depending on the assignment. And again, the great thing, it's up to you. You get to decide how much you want to do it. So nothing's written in stone, and it's not scary. It's not scary for you. For kids it gets a little scary, but I'll go into that a little bit later. So when do I grade all of these? I use Google Classroom, so that way I'm not having to deal with media, I'm not losing their flash drives, I'm not having to download something and open it and wait. I can just go right down the line, and just with a playing test, I don't have to listen to the whole thing if it doesn't sound good. If I get the gist and I know they know what a dotted quarter note is, I'm saving time there. Another thing I do is I have the students grade each other. And some of the rubrics might just say, was this composition 30 seconds long, yes or no? The student assesses it themselves, and then they choose who the reviewer is. And it could be a family member for that much. I'm not looking at their posture. I can assess their posture, but this is not a time for me to give feedback, especially during the early stages of composition. I'll have their family assess and listen to it. And then I just get a big desk calendar and I write everything out for the year. I have a really challenging time each year with work-life balance. I'm giving a few things up, like coaching football and track, and just doing band and parenting this year. So, yay, Mike Perez for finally teaching me that. So, and just look at it. Do you want all classes? Do you want all 3 classes to turn in, you know, a ton of compositions? I'll have 285 students this year. I highly doubt I'm going to have to listen to 285 compositions over a weekend. I don't have time for that. So you just kind of choose it, and that everything has to be assessed and graded by you. It's nice to relinquish some of that control and let the students take that over. So whether you tier it, you know, maybe this class is due 1 week and this one's 2 weeks later, but it also takes the place of some playing assessments. Don't get me wrong, we still have playing assessments on sheet music in the book, and this just, you know, not takes the place of it, it just enhances it. Oh, it just went fast. Slow down. Alright. So why should we compose? Everyone is a composer. I'm a composer, you're a composer. It's cool because just throughout the year, more students start practicing. The students, they tend to fall through the crack, and then they have a really good composition, and they know that the other students and their peers in their class enjoyed it. That gets them motivated, and they practice a little bit more. They have more ownership. They're very proud. There's technology. I want to show you an app called Loopy. How many of you have heard of Loopy, the Loopy app? Oh, it's fun. It's super fun. And then they found one student, I had just given an assignment, and they created their own software that made a composition. So, and the great thing is I don't have to know how all of these apps work. Technology is pretty intuitive. Students at this age are very intuitive and tech savvy. So I learned along the way with technology. And also codamusic.com. Notepad is free, so they can write it to where it looks professional. Why do we compose? So we can assess. Students get excited. And my favorite is just, your first chairs aren't the ones writing the best compositions. It's, you know, maybe your introverted person in the back of the class, or the last chair that really hardly ever practices, but they end up getting this composition done, and they shine, and then all of a sudden they're practicing more. So it's not going to hurt your band. It's not going to give you extra to do. It enhances. It enhances the literature. You can choose a melody or a rhythm that's hard for your students in one of your pieces, and base the composition off that. And just talk about it in class. It doesn't have to be a very formal, here's a rubric, go home and do this, let me listen to it. They can think, pair, share right there. And every time the students, they're like, thank you for giving me this. When are we composing again? When can we write our next composition? And that's always great. So Bennett Reamer, one of the founding fathers of music education, just when we're choosing literature, we want to think about craftsmanship, sensitivity, imagination, and authenticity. The great thing is when students are incorporating those things and those ideas in their own music, that's stimulating creativity and encouraging higher level thinking. So questions to ponder. On page 24 in the instrumentalist article, I think it's the 3rd page, you'll see a piece called Groovy Roller, and if you look at it, it looks like chicken scratch. And that says A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. And so when the student played A, B, A, B, she had just played a few notes. She was a 4th grader. I taught in Chicago before I came to Colorado. And then I knew when she was playing, I knew exactly what the non-standard notation meant. Because why do we have standard notation in the first place? Why does it exist? Who wants to be brave and answer? Why do we have standard notation? Y'all are banded out.
So that it's useful and everyone can understand it.
Yeah, so somebody else can read your music. And like, even though I love composing, nobody's going to be playing my kids' music at this age. So it doesn't have to be in standard notation. And it's cool because every year I can say you can write it however you want, and by the time we just hit the 2nd composition, students are already using finale, and they're writing it out on the staff. There's no student that just uses symbols for the rest of the time. Another weird question I didn't think of is, does it have to have a title? It doesn't. It's relinquish the control, let the students decide what they want to do. And then do you want it to have open parameters or closed? With the dotted quarter note composition, it's very closed. I want you to write it like this. I want you to show me that you understand what a dotted quarter note is and how it's used in music. If it's open, we use a family composition in December, and I'll talk about that more a little bit later in the presentation, and it's wide open. Pretty much, you're going to write a 32 measure composition, you're going to play it for your family, 1, 2, 3, go, out the door. And then if they play it publicly, I do have them play it for us, whether they make their own video on a device and share it with us, or they play it in class. I do have them play it. So it does, they can play under pressure and they can be vulnerable. And of course, at the beginning of the year, relationship would be the most important, and setting it up so it's a safe environment for students to feel that they want to play it in front of others. If you look at the rubrics that I've got in there, and it's just a few, there's always reflection questions at the bottom, and I think that's a great way. If you've got a class of 72 students, 50 students, even 12, and your day is busy, it's not that you know every student individually and you know everything about them and what they're doing outside of your main class. And so it's a great way to get to know your students, because you're getting into their metacognition of what they're thinking, and it helps strengthen your relationship with them, and it helps strengthen the relationship with the class, because they're sharing things that are so personal. So a few example student reflections, I'll ask them, what did you enjoy the most? And a student named Ariel is just getting it done, so I can see that I did an overall good job, and if I did it, so it makes me very, very proud. And students, they're going to remember that. What, if anything, would you do differently? The majority of time on every composition is I would spend more time on it, improving it, making it longer, and sound even more beautiful until it is to perfection. So a lot of students are going to say, I would have made it longer. I would have spent more time on it. And it's not because they didn't get their overall level best, it's just they loved composing. So it's just getting to know your students in a different way. I learned how to play my sheet music better because I composed a piece with hard rhythms. I had to stretch my imagination. And here's, this next answer, I become more open-minded towards peers that are different than me. I'm not going to get that from a playing test. I'm not going to get that from you passing off your skills. So whether they have to research something and share and collaborate, or just the beauty of creating music. When the students play it in front of their peers, that's what brings it to life. So that's why I always love to have the students play their composition so we can hear it. They've worked really hard on it. So we want to learn what they have to share. And that still can be through a recording. How many of you use smart music in your classrooms? So, the students that have smart music, they get to play it over and over, and they get to work at it until they really love it. So I'll do the same thing for the composition. And I don't say, here's how you record it, and here's exactly what you do. I'll say, go home and record it. And, at this point in time, whether your school is one-on-one, or it's a device, or they can come to the library, or just their phones. Most students at this day and age have phones. So they're practicing, and they're spending more time practicing, so they're improving, so your band is getting stronger. And it's meaningful, and it's forming memories in your class, and everybody's growing, and it's very genuine, so it just gets to that personal piece. Things that I've learned along the way is your comments should be genuine and very thoughtful to keep it real, so we empower the students. This is not the time to say, your composition was great, but your posture, golly, I wish you would work on that posture. You've just taken the gift that they've worked on and that vulnerability that they've opened to share something very personal. So try to focus on the composition in the early years. When we get to high school, it's a different story. But when they first start composing, you want to make sure that you're really, really encouraging them. The first composition can be scary, and with my students, sometimes they'll cry, they're like, oh, I can't do this, whether it's a plan test, and the way I do is I'm like, you can cry, and we're going to keep playing, and we're going to finish this today in front of everybody. And parents support me on that, so yes, it's hard, and I love when my students overcome adversity with mental toughness. And then Mr. Perez, I've got one of his students in here with Mike's students, Andy Blumfeld, and we talked about, and you'll have a few students do this, they'll play, and you're like, wow, that sounds really familiar. And Mike said, students sound like a video game, and I've had a kid who'll sound like Star Wars. I'm like, wait a second, that's transcribing. When you hear music and then write it down, that's not really composing. So instead of slamming them, encourage them. Just think about your own melody, what inspires you, and just kind of think about a melody and then go from there. But in these beginning stages, I would be really sensitive with them. the student fears, and even every now and then I'll have a parent that say, my student's not a composer, they don't know how to do this, they're not able to do this. And I'll just say they can do it. We're going to do it if you'll just encourage them. That's what I'm asking for you, to be open-minded. And that's very rare. And then I ask you to compose. Compose for your students. You don't have to get out a band piece and compose. Just play a short little melody on the piano. Tell them what you're thinking about, because if they see you do it, and that's, definitely a much safer group to compose, unless imagine if I asked you to get up and compose a piece right now, right? How many of us would do that? I probably wouldn't. So it's a very safe place to compose in front of your students. They're going to love it, and they're going to want to do it too. A little bit about commissions. As Kurt gave a great introduction, and in the article that I wrote for the instrumentalist, kids think that composers are dead white men. Like nobody else composes except dead white men, and that's not true. So commission a piece. It doesn't have to be a super well-known composer, unless you've got a really big budget and they really want to write for you. But Brad Dietz, he's at LSU. At one of the reading sessions at CBA, they had played that piece. So that was my first commission. I went to Northwestern with Brett. He's their percussion teacher and composer at LSU. And I wanted to write a piece for band, choir, and orchestra, just to show that we all work together. And then you learn along the way, no matter how many people are in the choir, bands are loud. So we made it to where you can just play it without the band and the orchestra, and then you have to think about the range and how strong your students are, and will other people be able to play this piece? And at that time, I really loved the music of Philip Glass, and he knew Philip Glass from Duquesne when he was at Duquesne, so we named the piece Shards of Glass. And it's a fun experience. Kurt Vogel is right here in the room. Aaron Pierce you've got two composers like right here in the room. So use them. It's great. Kellen Rooney is just a junior at CSU. He just wrote a piece for us, Batteria. And then Ben Justice got his undergrad and master's at CSU, and he's about to go to Kansas for his doctorate in composition. And so I've asked him, it's funny, we got, this morning we talked about, what's your name, how long have you taught, and what's something you could give. And I was thinking, well, I could give back to the community. I'm divorced, just got divorced a few years ago, and it was a very amicable, intentional, kind uncoupling. So for those of you on that path, you can do it. So I've asked Ben to write a piece to feature Eric, my husband, at Preston CBA. So it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be me. So just kindness, and the piece will be based on kindness. And when, Ben said, well, what do you want? What do you want it to be like? And I said, I don't want to step on your creativity. I want it to be based on kindness. I want to feature Eric on percussion, and I want it to be fun for the kids. And I want the kids to know that you're alive, and I want the kids to know that being kind that's my first rule in my classroom, is be kind to be kind. And of course that's from Henry Miller. Andy Blumfelt is a student of Mike Perez's, and then he started off with kind of electronic music, and then got to where he's composing a little more for class. He's a baby. He's just not going to see you as a freshman. So there's a lot of people out there that want to write for you, and it's okay if they write for you and it doesn't work. You might perform that just at your school, and talk to the composer too. I learned the hard way too that composers don't know everything already, and so you have to ask them a lot of questions and encourage them to ask you a lot of questions. So live composers plus your students makes a very motivated group of people, and a very happy group of people. I'm going to go over a little bit. My favorite composition that I give the students is the family composition. So we start mid-November, the week before Thanksgiving, and that is in our packets as well. The rubric's in there right after the chromatic composition. And this is a big one. They have to write 32 measures, and the kids' faces are like, 32 measures, and then you're probably thinking, geez, 32 measures, 4 measures of a plan test in middle school is plenty. So that's where we can talk about form. It's where we can compose with scale degree on the board together. It's where your go-getter composers will finish early, and you can have them play for the class and motivate others. And all the classes have this assignment, and we do it every year. And it's not that everybody even has to play this one for the group, And so if you look at the second, so down at the reflection questions, in paragraph form, describe your composition and to whom you dedicated it. And it's really cool because they might dedicate it to somebody that has already passed, and they'll just have another family member answer the second reflection. But the second one is always my favorite too. So a family member is going to answer, describe your feelings and emotions about this composition, written especially for you. And you get great insight because, you know, if you've got so many kids, I think I added it up. If you've taught 220 kids a year, and this is my 17th year teaching, it's over 3,500 students. So I've never thought about that. And that's amazing. And so you're not going to know their parents, especially when we have two sets of parents for one kid, or however their family's composed. So it's neat when a family might say, oh, I love the way that the chord, you know, cadenced here, and then it was very legato, and you're like, oh, that would be a parent that can come in and volunteer for solo and ensemble, or that can come in right now and help my lowest kid that doesn't know note names. So there's your volunteer set right there for music, or it might just be, you know, I've been running around and December's very crazy, and I didn't know that my daughter felt this way about me, and it's just cool the impact that we can have. And they don't always have to play this for the class, but they're invited. So the first time I did it, my first year in Colorado, I was at Blevins Middle School, where Charlotte is right now. And her name was Robin, and she struggled with snare drum technique. She didn't know her notes. You know, she was in 9th grade at the time I was there, and they had a vendor. You know, she just wasn't as strong as the others. And I said, I always give them the option to share the reflection questions, but I don't push them because that's so personal. And she said, my cousin committed suicide 3 weeks ago, and so I want to play this piece for piano. And she sits down and she plays the piano piece, and it's drop dead silent, and there's tears in all of our eyes, and that's her way of expressing her grief. It's her way of, you know, getting through that, and then she shared that with, you know, a group of 9th graders. So we were, you know, it binds you right there. Every time there's a performance, we bond together. So even with that. So the example I'm going to play for you, these students are currently sophomores, going into their sophomore year, and one of them, she had little seizures lots of times during class, and she still came in with a smile on her face every day. She's had 2 brain surgeries, and she's still playing the trumpet. And she asked 2 of her friends, and I pretty much just said, here's the composition, go. And so we'll listen to that. She wrote all of it. And this is also in your folder, and it's a short composition as well. worked on it for a really long time, and it wasn't perfect, and that's okay, and it wasn't, the trumpet was in a really low register, but they worked on that for weeks, and they came in at it, every day, and they practiced it on their own. So, and I didn't tell them you need to do it in 3, and you need to do these chords, and here's what a 1 chord looks like, and here's a dominant, and here's how you build it. I just said, go compose. Now, can you get into that? Yes, of course you can. So again, composition is what you make it and what you want it to be. So, so that's just the one that we do in December, and then the poetry, I write poetry on the side or whatnot, and so April is National Poetry Month, it's National Jazz Month, and so I offer the students, I obviously tell them about jazz as well, and with poetry, I tell them, we're going to make the poetry, we're going to make the poem, P-O-E-M, there's your translation, that's how we say it in the South, and y'all say it in a different way. It's a great way to introduce minimalism, and so we talk about minimalism, and I show them this recording of Me Play 5 by Philip Glass that utilizes the poem Two Lovers on a Park Bench by Samuel L. Johnson. And of course they giggle, because it's, about two lovers on a park bench, and, how much do you love me? And it's, count the grains of sand in the ocean, count the stars in the sky. And it also loves to talk about sequences in 3s. And so the poem goes through that. And then we talk about, and so it's Philip Glass. So we're about to have 6th graders listen to Philip Glass. And we won't listen to all of it right now, but I do want to show you a little bit of the video that I showed them. And so it's just, this one was live in New York City. I asked him, just what do you hear when it changes, and what do you think minimalism is? So I'm not grabbing, my music history textbook from college and going over it, and I just say, what do you think minimalism is? And we play the entire recording, but I'll play a little bit for you so you can have some.
The bus driver stopped and put the red button and recalled 2 black and white balls, and Holmes pushed on the brakes before balls went down to that, and Holmes said, get these balls up and
counting up
from the gear shift. All these are the days, my friends, and
this could be us together.
are the days.
The day with its cares and perplexities is ended, and the night is now upon us. The night should be a time of rest, a time to relax. Be a meed of a soothing story to banish the disturbing thoughts of the day, to set to rest our troubled minds and put at ease our ruffled spirits. And what sort of story shall we hear? It will be a familiar story. A story that is so very, very old, and yet it is so new. It is the old, old story of love. 2 lovers sat on the park bench with their bodies touching each other, holding hands in the moonlight. There was silence between them. So profound was their love for each other, they needed no words to express it. And so they sat in silence on the park bench, with their bodies touching, holding hands in the moonlight. Finally, she spoke. "Do you love me, John?" she asked. "You know I love you, darling," he replied. "I love you more than tongue can tell. You are the light of my life, my sun, the moon, and stars. You are my everything. Without you, I have no reason for being." Again, there was silence as the 2 lovers sat on the park bench with their bodies touching, holding hands in the moonlight. Once more she spoke. "How much do you love me, John?" she asked. He answered, "How much do I love you? Count the stars in the sky. Measure the waters of the oceans with a teaspoon. Number the grains of sand on the seashore. Impossible, you say? Yes. And it is just as impossible for me to say how much I love you. My love for you is higher than the heavens, deeper than Hades, and broader than the earth. It has no limits, no bounds. Everything must have an ending, except my love for you. There was more silence as the two lovers sat on the park bench with their bodies touching, holding hands in the moonlight. Once more, her voice was heard. "Kiss me, John," she implored. And leaning over, he pressed his lips warmly into hers in fervent osculation.
And it's pretty profound, and then I ask the students, when did it change? And they'll say, oh, it's when the violin played, and then that's when the poem came in. And they'll say, we didn't understand the words at the beginning. You kind of couldn't hear what they were saying. I'm like, do you think that's on purpose? And so it's really cool what they come up with. Now we're going to change gears. So this is the Loopy app. It's about $7, and it's well worth its weight in gold. So what you do is there's 6 little round buttons or 4 because you can get on your phone. And you press it, and it'll record you, and then it waits however long you set it. You can play for 4 measures, then it rests. And so I'll play just a little bit of this just to change the subject, and then or change the tone, and then I'll show you a student composition, and then we'll it up.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot. That's hot. Okay. I'll lay right here.
So this is where you get up and dance.
All right, that one, just one or two together. Okay, ready? Okay.
It's pretty awesome because even to use the app, you have to be quantized with the tempo. You can't just like kind of slap through it. So the kids are learning tempo, and whether they're singing, they are playing, they can play and then they can play another layer. So they're sequencing and layering without going through this whole, music theory and let's do it exactly this way and then do this next, like the old dead white man composition type stuff, right? So they get to do it on their own and they figure it out on their own. And everybody brings something different to the table, and it's fun. I could not live without I just couldn't live without student competition. Let's see, I think it's this one. So this little competition is a little, he got his dad to rate a poem by Shel Silverstein, and he played the trombone. And you'll notice he took the minimalism, and then the cool thing, if you listen at the end, right before the end of the poem, he does something different with his trombone, and I'll ask you what he did.
Okay, Rob Slasarchik, second period.
And his dad read the poem for him, so you've got the family working together.
My doggy ate my essay, he picked up all my mail, he cleaned my dirty closet and dusted with his tail. He straightened out my posters and swept my wooden floor. My parents almost fainted when he fixed my bedroom door. I did not try to stop him, he made my windows shine. My room looked like a palace, my jacket smelled like pine. He fluffed up every pillow, he folded all my clothes, he even cleaned my fish tank with a toothbrush and a hose. I thought it was amazing to see him use a broom. I'm glad he ate my essay on how to clean my room.
So the way he ended it was cool. He put a little twist in there, and I didn't say, hey, sequences happen in threes, and do this, and do, the root, and then the dominant, the root, the dominant, and then kind of change it up, but he just did it on his own. And that's where you can bring it out and talk about it with the class. And so they're learning, they're learning all these things that we just don't think they're capable of learning, but, they can. Very, very good. So, and I just want to show you the poetry composition. So rubrics do not have to be, they don't have to be so in-depth. There's just yes and no questions. What did you learn from the assignment? Did you perform it well for the class? Did you try your best? And then another student can answer I don't think I grade any of these. I look and see, does it match? How did it go? And at this time, it's April. I trust the kids. And then one of the best parts of compositions, because we do share it with the class, is when, it's that student that struggles and then their composition's outstanding and they play it really well. And then I'll ask the kids, is there anybody's composition you'd like to hear again? If you can hear somebody's composition, and they're like, oh, you're Karen Gregg's, let's go. And then they'll say, can we record you? And they're all around Karen with their iPhones and their devices, and they're recording her. So how great does it feel to be Karen Gregg? I mean, granted, it'd be great on an everyday basis, but it's just a good feeling. So leaving the room, and now that student's going to be motivated to practice. Where if it's just your play your skills, play your plan test, you're not the strongest student all the time, they might not have had that experience otherwise. So, we're going to a banquet. We could do Think, Pair, Share on a different day. What questions do you have for me before we go eat together, since we're all in this together? Yes, ma'am?
Do you teach tone tendencies at all with the kids? I mean, do you talk about, how much information are you giving with this, when you introduce the scale degrees?
I'll say, and I'll leave it open. If they want to end on 7th, or, then they can. Most kids won't, and that's okay if they do. So we do talk about it. How do you think that sounded? Did it have a closing? Why did you choose that over the, why did you choose that over the roots? Why did you choose to end it on a dominant? And some kids, very few kids will say, I just want it to be unanswered. I didn't want it to resolve. And that would be the very few high-level kids, but I'm not, so it more comes out, so we'll talk about it more in the warm-up, and I think we go over that enough to where kids want to end it on the key that they're in. Yeah, very good question. Yes, ma'am?
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
First of all, do you have them turn in a written? You kind of
Yes.
touched on that a little bit. Do they always turn in a written
Yes.
component?
Yes. They always turn in the music they wrote. And then, if I thought about that, I could have brought samples, and of course I thought about that, driving down here today, but they always have to turn in, yes, because I need to know that they know what they're writing, and I need to know, especially even the first 6-note composition, you're playing a C, and I'll be over their shoulder when they're playing it, or looking at their video, and I'll have their music in the hand, and then I have them turn in written, just because I like to, yes, they could do this on Google Classroom too, but I like it written, so I've got their handwriting, I've got, so there's always a written component for me. Yes, yes.
That took care of the second question.
Oh, okay, cool, yay. Any other questions?
Maybe one more, sorry.
Okay, no, don't be sorry.
So if a kid why isn't it working to work? I mean, I know you don't want to give them a ton of information, but if they're seeking more help, do you definitely give that to them?
Yes,
Like-
yes, and then I just, because we're all, when it gets to the grindstone, yes, I try to do as much of that stuff in the warm-up and the fundamentals, and when we go over scales, or reversing it when we're playing a piece, and I'll say, here's or where, do you see any sequences? Do you see any climaxes? And what are you doing in your composition right now to have a climax? What are you doing? What are you doing right now to have a sequence? What are you doing to have the musical elements that you want that we're talking on? So it's more circular with that. So yeah, very good question. Yes, sir.
What was the process of you implementing this in your classroom? Like how long did it take? And was it trial and error?
It was at the very beginning. So I taught 3 years in Alabama, and then that's before I started applying for grad school. And there was just the Music Educators Journal. Maud Hickey had written "Students Can Compose," and I thought, well, that would be. And I'm a geek with the national standards at the time. Mike makes fun of me, but and I'm just like, well, we're gonna compose. And then I just took one idea from her article and did it, and I thought, wow, this is awesome. And then we just kind of go along. And then I'll ask students, what are your ideas for composition? And they'll come up with good ones too. So yeah, definitely trial and error, especially with learning very quickly. It's very personal, and they're being very vulnerable to give that to you. So I don't, I don't give them feedback, and I'm pretty hard on my kids, but I don't give them feedback on, gosh, it's a great composition, but man, your tone sucks right now. I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna talk just about the composition because it's a scary thing. And then at Northwestern, we had to take we had to compose in one of our classes. And the ACE being at, Northwestern is very intimidating for me in some aspects. And then composing, and I've never composed, but luckily nobody else had either. So writing the composition in 2 days and then sharing it with people that you've just met, I get it. And so I think that's why I try to compose often, just to remember how it feels, that, wow, this is really personal and I'm sharing it. Just like when I write poetry, when, I have, 2,000 people following my poetry Twitter, but one person I know has that Twitter, just because my poetry is so, and some of it's been published in the United Kingdom, whatnot, but still, it's still so personal, I don't share it with people I know yet. So, yeah, very trial and error. Yes, yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So we heard flute, trumpet, piano.
Yes.
Do you have any assignments that are ensemble by design?
I don't. I'll let them do it on their own. I don't make the time with that right now, and I think it's just, even with me, like this last year, getting back to emails and even grading assessments in general took a lot of my time. So kids will end up doing it on their own, and I encourage it, but I don't push it. Yeah, I kind of let them save that for the high school aspect. Yeah, and I could push it more, and I should. So yeah, challenge, I should challenge. I'll take it as a challenge. Yes. Now I do have a kid. We have an all-star band, which just means if you behave and you want to practice more, and you want another band class, we meet, and it's 7th and 8th grade first semester, 6th, 7th, 8th second semester, and it's a student-led band. And so the students conduct the concert, and I'm in there with them, so it's a very peer-oriented, it's 100% student-led class. I'll pick out the music, but then they do the rest, and they vote on the 8th grader that they want to conduct by them coming up and conducting for about a week, and then they vote based on attributes, like who's going to be a leader, who's going to be very kind, who's going to, just the life skill type things, not the musical so much. And a student decided to write a piece for the all-star band, and it ended up, the tuba is all over the place, and just the regular things that you do when you don't know, tubas can't play this time, tubas can't play 16th notes at, quarter note equals 132 in 8th grade band. So it happens, but I don't assign that to every kid. That would be torture. Yeah, I'm at the assessing part, but I should push it more, and I will. Yeah. And then, did you have a question? Yes, sir.
So you were talking about doing the chromatic one, they use equal twice, and that it's not always the most pleasant thing to listen to. Do you find that they get discouraged at all? if
They
it's-
don't, and I don't tell them it's not playing. And there was one, and I couldn't find it, man. I dug and dug and dug. One kid wrote one, and it's beautiful. It's just this eerily beautiful piece, and I'm like, wow, you did that using the chromatic scale. That's pretty cool. But it's just, planning to learn an alternate fingerings. They're getting a little higher in the range, and that composition is purely for the sake of, do you know your chromatic scale? And when they play it and when they write it, because there's always maybe 5 to 7, it'll still be in concert B flat, but they think they've used it. And then that tells me, whoa, they don't know that a B flat is different than a B natural, so I need to back up and go over in harmonics. So it's just for the pure sake of, do you know the chromatic scale or not? Yeah, good question. Any others? An attack, can we attack? Awesome. Thank y'all very, very much. We did